Good evening, everybody. Hot enough for you? It's not the heat so much, it's the humidity. Yeah, you lived in Virginia long enough, you hear that plenty. So, look, tonight I want to talk to some of my Democrat friends out there, or any Democrats who may see this as it winds its way through the World Wide Web. Um, it struck me recently that with all the complaining that the right wing is doing, and rightly so, about executive orders and Obama saying he's going to get things done with his own pen if he has to. He's going to sign those executive orders and make things happen, especially when it comes to things like gun control and that sort of thing. And when it comes to health care, pick a topic. And you've seen the stuff in the news. And like I said, the folks on the right, and I include myself in this number because I'm not crazy about it either, just go nuts about these executive orders. Of course, they didn't mind when George Bush was doing it. Okay, but again, that's more on that later. And but the people on the left, the Democrats out there, and you know who you are, think it's great. Yeah, go around Congress, screw those guys. If they're not going to do anything, then you need to do it because your job is to take care of us. We're your children. We're helpless without you. Okay, so the same people who thought George Bush was an ass for doing these sort of executive orders think it's great when their guy's doing it, and vice versa. We're back to the party politics thing. But it struck me in the news, we also have been hearing recently about the level of poverty in the black community. And wasn't one of the things everybody was so excited about when Obama got elected was that he was going to fix that? He was going to make things better. And of course, we've also had over 50 years of LBJ's Great Society. You remember LBJ, the guy that said, I'm going to have those N words voting Democrat for the next 200 years? When are you guys going to realize the Democrats don't give a shit about you? I mean, seriously, any more than Republicans give a shit about other people. I mean, when are you going to understand this? So we've had over 50 years of the Great Society. We've spent over $22 trillion. And the percentage of people living in poverty in this country has changed little, if at all. I mean, let's look at some statistics here. Let me see if I can bring these up for you, because, again, I'm trying to figure out how to use this thing here. So we've got all kinds of screen share. That's what I'm looking for. Here we go. All right, so we see right here that in 1960, the white population was 88.6, black population 10.5. By 1970, it had only gone up a little less than 1%. All right, so in that amount of time here, in this 10-year period, and the Great Society started in 1964, okay, the increase in the population has gone up this much. Now, that being said, let me get back to some other stuff here. I'm sorry, guys. Bear with me. I'm still learning how to use this. And we'll go to, all right, 22 trillion I told you about. Just so you'll see I'm not making that number up. Okay, 22 trillion has been spent. Great Society 50 years later. Okay, so we're back to that. Now let's go to something else here, some more charts. Oh, here's something that you might find interesting. And it says, 5 decades after President Johnson initiated the war on poverty, America remains at around the same percentage of people still living in poverty as it did back then. In 1964, the poverty rate was approximately 19%. Today, it's around 15%, said Project 21 spokesman Derek Green. Statistics such as these demonstrate the war on poverty was a continually mismanaged disaster. Of course, the question that needs to be asked is, should the federal government be involved in a war on poverty in the first place? And that's another argument for another time. I respectfully submit that nothing in the Constitution authorizes the federal government to take care of poor people. That's, if you want to argue that case that the government should do it, then that's an argument for the local and state level, not the federal level. But some people want to go there. Okay, so moving on to some other stuff here. Let's see what I got here for you. All right, the U.S. Census Bureau. That's the U.S. Census. You know, the government. You love the government. You want more of the government. You tell us all the time. The U.S. Census Bureau records let me start over. The U.S. Census Bureau records historical poverty data among American families using its current population survey and annual social and economic supplements chart. In 1967, about one-third, that's 33.9% of all black families lived below the poverty level, compared to 11% of all families in America. By 1990, the disparity gap between the two remained virtually the same, despite a slight decrease in the overall poverty rate for both population groups. During the decade of the 1990s, while the nation was experiencing an economic boom, the poverty rate of black families dropped from 29% in 1990 to 19% in 2000, virtually cutting the disparity in half. The economic downturn in the decade from the 2000 to 2010 caused the increase of the black family poverty rate to 24%. So, you know, it goes, the lowest it's gone is 19%, okay? And we're using Census Bureau records here, and you love the government, and the Census Bureau is part of the government, so you can't tell me that you don't trust these numbers because you believe everything the government tells you. So the point that I'm trying to make with all this is, if executive orders are such a great idea, and if you think that Obama should use executive orders and that he is continuing to use executive orders because he cares about you and he wants to do right by you, then why hasn't he written on some sort of executive order about eliminating poverty, about giving black families in this country more money, about increasing the minimum wage? I mean, why can't he sign an executive order to do that? You seem to think he can do everything else with executive orders, and he's certainly already done quite a few things, and you love it because he's your guy. Why hasn't he done anything to eliminate poverty? How come so many black families, in fact, the numbers since he took office haven't changed. The same number of blacks are still in poverty as they were when he took office. So why hasn't he done anything about that? I'll tell you why, guys. And you should know this by now, but you're too blind to it. He doesn't care about you. The Democrat Party doesn't care about you. As long as you remain in poverty, you remain dependent on the government. And as long as you remain dependent on the government, the Democrats will gladly step in and play the role of your benefactor. Vote for me, I'll set you free. A chicken in every pot and a car in every garage. And you keep believing that crap, even though they haven't done a thing to help you. But you keep voting for them, and you keep believing them, and you keep buying the bullshit. I mean, the stats are out there, people. Look them up. A few quick clicks on the computer, and you can see the numbers. And so once you see those numbers, then you have to ask yourself, if you have any skepticism in you at all, why hasn't anything substantially changed? And the answer is simple. It's right in front of you. They don't want it to change. They need you in poverty. They need you to need them. Do you get it? As long as you remain in poverty and you think they are going to take care of you, then they know you're going to keep voting for them because they're going to keep promising things that they have no intention of delivering. So the next time you think about executive orders and what he is or is not signing into law, ask yourself, why hasn't he done anything in the past 8 years about poverty and jobs in the black community? Not that the federal government should be doing those things, but if we're going to operate under the assumption that they do, as many of you seem to, then you have to wonder why they haven't done anything about it. Get a grip, people. Get a clue. Wake up. They're using you. You are pawns. They don't care about you. They want your vote so they can stay in power, and they're doing quite well, thank you very much. They're wearing $1,000 suits and eating at the big, nice restaurants and driving big, fancy cars. But what have they done for you?